Dave Baldwin, it was terrific having you in the AI for Professional Training, our AI training class. And love to hear a little bit about your experience of the training for people that might be interested in taking it in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Martin, I originally signed up for the class, but mainly because I just knew that I was behind the learning curve on AI, and I know it's an important thing. We all need to be understanding how to utilize it. I think I've noticed that it seems kind of like what computer literacy was in 1985, that if you didn't know how to use a word processor, then you were going to have a hard time finding a job. And I think we're in a similar situation now with needing to understand that. And I think that I came into it with just a lot of vague ideas of, I mean, I knew that you could type something into Chat GPT or Claude and ask it to write something or answer a question, or I knew about the most basic applications like saying, okay, I've got these 10 ingredients, can you give me a recipe? Or can you write a blog post and all that kind of stuff. But before taking the class, I didn't really have a sense for how to use it well. And there's a couple of the things that the class really drove home for me was about the specific techniques that you have to use. And I think at the long and short of it, it was before I had attempted to have an AI write several things for me, but I was never happy with anything it made. And I found that it was before I took the class, it was easier to just write something myself than to do the amount of work I would have to do to edit what an AI wrote to have something I'd be happy with. And through some of the pretty simple techniques that you taught in the class, I was able to get my head around what it looks like to actually have AI help me with writing, but also have something that sounds like I wrote it and have it be something that I'm happy with and with less effort than when it would have been required for me to write the whole thing by myself from scratch. And so that was really, I mean, and I heard some other folks share about some of the things they were working on, and I think that's really the key. Like I mean, and this is, I think one of my takeaways was realizing that you don't want to think of it as what can AI do for me. It's more about how do I break up a task and then figure out which slices of that task an AI can help me with. But I think even the bigger takeaway was realizing that an AI, if you ask it to handle a big task all in one fell swoop and it's complicated, it's not going to be able to interpret that correctly. But if you can break down the task and have it handle one specific piece at a time, then that's where a lot of that time savings and labor savings can come in. It's just like hiring a person to a degree. If I hire an assistant and I just throw a bunch of confusing, complicated information at them and hope they can figure out what I mean, I may or may not get anything I can use at all. But if I think, okay, this person's coming in on Tuesday at 9 o'clock, let me get the work organized for that I'm going to have them work on, and then tell them, okay, I want you to work on A, B, and C, and here's exactly how I want you to do it. That's kind of how you have to think about with an AI. And so, yeah, the class was really valuable in terms of teaching practical ways to do that.
I think you brought up something very valuable that we found that people who seem to get the most of it at this level, because it's always changing, is it's more like having a assistant that you're in partnership with, but they don't know your entire business.
Yeah.
You're giving them pieces so that you can verify that it's accurate and useful. And you're just not saying, hey, go off and do everything. And now, obviously, the long term goal was having these agents, but they're finding that's much more complicated to implement because there's so many variables in the real world. Do you really want to find out that a AI agent just scheduled you to go to France because you really just wanted to have a Zoom meeting with the person, or who knows how it could make mistakes?
Or because I said I wanted to have a croissant, so it booked a ticket to France. So I was like, well, I could have just gone to the store and bought one. Yeah, I definitely can see that. So yeah, no, and I think to your point, it's similar to what I'm finding is that it's not, this is not a silver bullet. It's not I've got AI. It's gonna just be gonna magically do all this work for me with no effort required, which I didn't think that, but it's more. I think AI is a strategic tool that fits if you know where it fits in the tool belt. And I think that's the challenge is we need to understand what it can and can't do well and how to use it for those specific applications.
That was our goal, to give you a foundation so you could build on it because it's changing so fast. And also so you could differentiate faster the PR and hype to what's really practically available now within the free or reasonably paid range.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, if an AI won't do everything I want in a given application, then the question becomes, what portion of that could it still do? And yeah, for instance, I've had mixed results with asking AI to write a blog post and to rewrite a blog post in my voice. Sometimes it does it correctly, sometimes it doesn't. But I've also experimented with asking it for feedback, and then I can review the feedback. And there's also it's I guess it's not exactly training in AI, but it's similar in the sense that I can use multi-shot prompting to say, okay, give me a response from ranging 1 to 5, and I'll see if I actually agree with that response. And if I don't, then I need to adjust my inputs to tell it, okay, what is a 1 and what's a 5. The other thing that I took away was there's a lot more upfront effort that goes into, just be willing to do it wrong for a while and think of it as an investment and effort of learning how to use the tool. And yeah, and so now I kind of think of it as I don't really expect to get useful results or value added results out of it. If I do, that's great. But the real value add is if I can do it wrong and get a bad output, then that at least tells me I'm one step closer to learning how to get a good output.
Yeah, and understanding how to then tweak it. That's it. Is you found what works for you and trying out different platforms to see which one's the best for you, which one's best for what you want, not just everyone thinking it's ChatGPT. And some have access to the web, some don't have access, some are better at writing, some are not. And that's was part of our goal, is to get you a survey of fundamentals of the moving pieces and a basic understanding of what are large language models, what are image diffusion systems, and having a good set of definitions as well as the history. So it was exciting having and hearing people's progress in the class. That's what I love. You can see some were more reluctant, like, I just want to know a prompt. And then they go, wait a second. Now that I understand this, I'm better at generating my own. And that's what we really wanted people to be left with. Again, a fundamental you can build on. So this was excellent having you in the class.
Great. Well, this was definitely a really valuable class, and I think I really would recommend that for any small business. Or I also think it'd be great for a college student or somebody who's in. I mean, actually, we had a member that was in between jobs, so I think there's another good. So there's yeah, I'm hard put to think of who wouldn't benefit from taking this class, other than somebody who just is determined to never use AI. But that's
Well, that's an important point for young people that might be playing on it, because just like when I was teaching the social media management, kids knew how to use social media, but they didn't know responsibility, liability risk, and understanding ethics in it. So they were going into jobs thinking, oh, I know how to do social media. And then they were going, wait a second, I could lose my job. And that's another aspect we covered, the ethics and thinking about implementation, so that if you're on a committee in the office or in a new job, you start asking relevant questions and understand, like, for example, do you have a AI policy in the company? That when social media first came out, no one had a social media policy. Now they need to upgrade to an AI policy. A young person could maybe get a job by just asking that question and showing they understand it from the class. Dave, it was terrific having you in the class. And would you just let people know what you do for a living?
Sure. Yeah, so I do contract accounting. My specialty is helping business owners get clear about their numbers, particularly business owners that have P&L statements that are hard to interpret or extract useful insights. There's a lot we can do with that, and financial statements are largely an untapped gold mine of insights, and I love working with business owners in that capacity.
Great having you. Thanks so much, Dave.